what I'd like to ask you about is, first of all, just generally, how do you think the drug lab scandal has affected your office?
It's had a huge effect, and not in a positive way, only because of the real stretch of resources and time that we've had to put into this. This was not a situation of our making. We're handling it, and we will. But to take, we do about 35,000 cases annually. Now we have another 5,400 cases tacked on without the ability to have additional resources has been a real strain. So I have people with very heavy caseloads now picking these cases up. And as you can imagine, it's very time-consuming going through each file on an individual basis, which has to be done. It can't be looked at like cookie cutters, and it can't be looked at or handled in volume. Every case has to be looked at carefully. But we have a war room, and I have 6 people who are assigned full-time just to handle and review all these cases. We're still really at the fingertip stage of these, because the cases that have been reviewed and the 6 counties that it affects are cases which Andy Dukan had been involved trying to determine which the primary chemist, secondary chemist, confirmatory chemist, a notary, but those have to be reviewed. And these are just for people who are currently incarcerated. That's not including other cases in which people have been charged. She may have been involved, they're out on bail, or bail has been set and they're awaiting a trial date. So we're not even close to being in the real meat of this. And these cases are going to continue for years.
Now, the 5,400 cases, were those all cases that you believe were involved with Andy Dukan, or were those just the cases of those incarcerated?
Those are Andy Dukan cases, cases that have been adjudicated. We had 8,000 samples in which she may have been involved. And again, that's why each case has to be reviewed. But 8,000 samples that we believe she had been involved in, to what extent we're trying to determine, and that translates to 5,400 cases that had been adjudicated here in Essex County.
Do you think this compromises public safety?
Public safety is being pushed to the limit. I'm not sure. I don't think I'd characterize it as being compromised. On the integrity of public safety, this was, a drug lab crisis that was begotten by the fact there was no oversight. It's still extremely, I think, upsetting is to understand how this happened without people who were allegedly supervising not doing their jobs.
Right. It seems like it's such a mess, and it's unprecedented. Have you heard of anything like this anywhere else?
No, there's situations in other parts of the country, that we've tried to follow over time, that you've had a person perhaps doing something with respect to criminal activity in a lab. Traditionally, it's somebody who's become addicted, him or herself. But this, and you hit the word that I use when I speak about this. This is unprecedented, and it has to be addressed extremely proactively, and it has to be addressed by the resources to make sure that any defendant who's unfairly incarcerated, any defendant whose due process rights or constitutional rights was affected, gets justice. But it's our job as the district attorneys to balance out with public safety. As you can imagine, there's been suggestions by some who've said, just dismiss all the cases. And I just think that's a really sophomoric and, quite frankly, insulting suggestion that's no more than a soundbite, because there are people who are in jail who are dangerous people, violent drug offenders, dangerous people. We're talking people who aren't in jail because of possession, who have substance abuse problems. We deal with that in a compassionate, fair, just way. These are people who are dangerous people who commit acts of violence. So if they're in jail now because of a Dukan matter, and there's a drug charge that was either they had pled to, because many of these people pled to it, or they were convicted of, we won't stand for that if they had their rights violated. But in many of these cases, there were accompanying charges. Unlawful possession of firearms, home invasions, serious assaultive behavior. And I am not going to be party to releasing somebody who had other charges in which that person was found guilty, and put those people back on the street to violate people's safety and the overall picture of public safety in terms of the community.
Do you know, in terms of numbers, how many folks would have been released at this point?
I'm not positive. I mean, I would say it's less than 10.
Now, I believe your office has asked for $2 million when you talk about resources to be able to have enough folks to deal with these cases. Is that the number for this fiscal year alone? Is that right?
Yes. Yes.
And, what would that go for? What's the total amount, and what's it?
Well, for assistant district attorneys, I need a couple of appellate attorneys. I need some superior court ADAs who will do the real grunt work. I need a couple of district court ADAs, talking anywhere about 6 assistant district attorneys I was looking for. I need 2 admin staff to handle. We're getting a huge volume of requests for drug certifications, old files. I could use a copy machine to scan the cases, that I have. So we did a very detailed, as best we could, because again, it's unprecedented budget that we submitted over 6 months ago to the budget makers of the Commonwealth.
Yeah, and like everybody else, everybody's wondering what's going on, right? Why is it taking so long?
I'm not sure, and I'm not really happy about it.
You're wondering that as well.
I am.
When you see the way that the cases are being reviewed right now in a court session, and you're in this position of balancing public safety and liberty issues, if you will, what do you think is probably the biggest challenge for prosecutors and for the whole system in balancing those two competing issues?
Record reviews. I mean, there were so many different repositories for records, whether it's House of Correction for people serving sentences there, Department of Corrections at the state level. What were the records at the Department of Public Health? It seems that there was practically no record keeping there. So David Meyer was appointed a master to do that. So I think really just assimilating, we have our files. We're doing our best to go back to pull everything together. But the courts are involved in terms of certified convictions or certified documents, docket sheets, the drug lab in terms of how the procedure is done. So it's really it's assimilating all the records necessary to make a clear and just determination as how to go forward, which is the biggest challenge right now.
Do you think that this raises a lot of questions about the integrity of the criminal justice system?
This has absolutely nothing to do with the criminal justice system. I think they're phrasing that question the wrong way. This was a problem that is the administration's problem. It was caused by lack of oversight at the Department of Public Health, and nobody in the criminal justice system did anything wrong here. This was a chemist that was hired from the executive branch, had nothing to do with the district attorneys, had nothing to do with, the state police lab caught this most recent crisis because they had protocols in effect. They had procedures for oversight, and this was something that was going on for a long time under the Department of Public Health, and it was not something, it wasn't a crime lab issue, it wasn't anything that had to do with people who are on my side of the ledger, frankly.
But there are some folks who point to their email exchanges with an assistant district attorney in Norfolk County between Annie Dukin and the ADA. Looks like there was some sort of a friendly relationship, and that the question's been raised whether she thought she was supposed to maybe make it easier for testing to be done for certain district attorneys, and maybe there was some sort of collaboration going on with some DAs. So there are questions. Maybe that's a conspiracy theory, but there are certainly questions about how much of this is a systemic problem, really.
Okay, and that's a fair question.
What would you think?
Well, it's a fair question. I'll answer it this way. I think that this person in question had one communication with this office, and to suggest that if she had communication with assistant district attorneys was somehow nefarious is really unfair. Post Gonzalez, which was the case that came down with Judge Scalia that said that it was no longer acceptable to turn in a drug cert for a drug case, you had to have live testimony. How else were people going to find out if some chemist was available for trial than to have communication? You had to, and it's my understanding that many of the communications were, are you available to testify on this particular date? To suggest that any communication somehow taints the system, I suggest is not fair. It's not correct. If there was something to show a relationship that was improper, then absolutely it should be dealt with that way. To date, the way I understand it, there was not an improper relationship with respect to the one ADA in Norfolk County who resigned. I'm under the impression he tried to keep it professional, but I have not seen anything to date that indicated that she somehow was doing something that would affect any case in my county. So I don't see it as a public safety integrity question. I truly don't. And I'll wait for the results of the Inspector General's and Attorney General's investigations before I make a final verdict on that.